It was a sunny morning when I received the invitation to my son's wedding. At first, I was thrilled. This should have been one of the happiest moments of my life. I imagined the joy of seeing him in his suit, the laughter of friends and family, and perhaps the warmth of new beginnings. But what I saw instead made my heart freeze. Along with the invitation was a short, cold message from my daughter-in-law. "The greatest gift for our wedding is if you disappear from our family." I read it twice, thinking I must have misunderstood. How could someone I had welcomed into my home, someone I had treated like a daughter, speak to me with such cruelty? My hands trembled as I showed the message to my husband, who shared my shock. "Maybe she didn't mean it that way," he said softly, trying to calm me. But I knew that tone of malice. It wasn't accidental. I spent the day replaying every conversation I'd had with her. Had I done something wrong? Was I too involved in their wedding planning? Or maybe I had overstepped boundaries as a mother-in-law. I couldn't find a single moment that justified such a message. That night I couldn't sleep. The thought of standing at my son's wedding knowing I wasn't wanted was unbearable. By morning, I decided I had to confront her, to understand why she would say something so cruel. I called her, my voice steady but quiet, hoping to reach the woman I thought I knew. The line rang, then clicked. "Hello?" Her voice was clipped. I gathered courage and said, "I want to understand why you sent me that message. I thought we were family." There was a long silence. Then, in a voice sharper than I expected, she said, "Mom, you've been too much for too long. We want a fresh start without you interfering in our lives. If you truly loved us, you'd stay away from the wedding." I couldn't believe it. After all the love I had poured into raising my son, after all the sacrifices, this was the reward? My heart sank, but amidst the shock, a small fire ignited. I knew I had to decide. Do I back away quietly, as she demanded, or do I stand my ground, even if it meant facing humiliation in front of the family? That night I sat alone, staring at the wedding invitation on my table, wondering if a family could truly reject the very person who brought their son into the world. And yet, deep down, I realized this was only the beginning of a long, emotional journey, one that would test my patience, my love, and my courage. I received another unexpected message the next morning. This one would change everything I thought I knew about my son and his bride. The morning after receiving her cruel message, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from my son. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know whether to hope for understanding or brace myself for more hurt. The message was short, almost robotic. "Mom, I hope you understand our decision. This is best for us." I stared at the screen in disbelief. "Best for us?" I whispered aloud, my voice trembling. Was this really my son talking, or someone else? How could he, after all these years, allow his bride to dictate our relationship? My mind raced through every memory, his first steps, his school performances, late-night talks, and family vacations. All those moments suddenly felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to call my son. I needed to hear his voice, to understand why he was letting someone push me away. The phone rang, and when he answered, I could hear the tension in his voice. "Mom, I don't know what to say," he began, hesitant, almost guilty. "Say that you're my son," I interrupted gently. "Say that you won't let someone else decide how much I belong in your life." There was silence on the line. I could hear him breathing, the weight of indecision pressing on him. Finally, he admitted, "Mom, I want you there, but she says she won't marry me if you come." The words hit me like a lightning bolt. My heart ached not just for myself, but for my son. He was torn between the woman he loved and the mother who raised him. And somewhere deep down, I understood the complexity of young love, the fear of confrontation, and the desire to protect their new life. But the way they were handling it, demanding my absence, was cruel and unfair. I decided then and there that I needed to confront her directly. I couldn't let fear or politeness stop me. With trembling hands, I dialed her number. This time, when she picked up, I didn't plead or beg. I said calmly, "I don't want to fight, but I need you to explain why you see me as a threat. I'm your family now, whether you like it or not." Her laugh was cold, almost triumphant. "Mom, it's simple. You're too much, too involved, too loud, too opinionated. You suffocate us. The wedding is our moment, and if you love us, you'll step aside. That's the greatest gift you can give." I felt my blood boil, yet I stayed calm. There was a fire within me that refused to be extinguished. I knew I had a choice: back away quietly or prove that love and family couldn't be erased by words alone. That night, I sat alone, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. I realized that this wasn't just about a wedding. It was about respect, boundaries, and my place in my son's life, and I vowed silently that I would find a way to make them see that love and family could never be erased by words alone. The next day, an unexpected ally reached out to me, someone who promised to reveal secrets that could change everything. If you've ever felt rejected by someone you love, stay tuned. We'll show how a shocking revelation turned everything upside down. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to follow this emotional journey. The next morning, I received a message that made my heart pound. It was from my son's aunt, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She wrote, "Call me. There are things you don't know, and you need to hear them before it's too late." My curiosity and a flicker of hope pushed me to dial her number immediately. When she answered, her voice was cautious but urgent. "Mom, I know you're struggling with what's happening with your son and his bride, but there's more to the story than you realize." I leaned closer to the phone, my pulse racing. "What do you mean?" I asked. She paused, then began carefully. "She's not just controlling your son's wedding. She's been manipulating him in ways you can't imagine. She wants to isolate you because she fears your influence, your love, and guidance. She's been planting doubts, creating conflicts, and convincing him that your presence will ruin everything." I felt a mix of anger and shock. How could someone do this to my son, the boy I had raised with love and patience? And yet, as my aunt continued, the pieces began to fit together. "Mom, she's done this with her family too. She isolates people, pushes out anyone who might challenge her control. You're just the first to see it in action because she knows you love him too much to walk away." Tears welled up in my eyes. I realized then that this wasn't just a wedding issue, it was a battle for the heart and soul of my family. My son wasn't rejecting me out of malice. He was being influenced by someone who didn't yet understand the boundaries of love and respect. Determined to protect my family, I started thinking strategically. I knew confrontation alone wouldn't work. It would only escalate the conflict. I had to find a way to reach my son without hurting him, and at the same time, expose the reality of his bride's manipulations. But how could I do that without tearing the family apart? Later that day, I visited my son under the pretense of casual conversation. I asked him about the wedding preparations, about how excited he was, and about the little details that mattered most to him. Gradually, he began to relax, lowering his guard. And then, gently, I asked, "Do you truly want me there, or are you just afraid of making her angry?" He froze. His eyes flickered between guilt and confusion. "Mom, I want you there, more than anything," he admitted. "But I feel trapped. I don't want to disappoint her, but I can't ignore you either." That was the moment I realized that the real battle wasn't about me. It was about my son finding his courage and learning to stand up for his own family roots. I promised him that no matter what happened, I would be there for him, in a way that didn't fight his bride directly, but that protected the love we shared. That night, I discovered a secret about my daughter-in-law's past, one that could explain her obsession with control and possibly give me the leverage to save our family. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying my aunt's words. My daughter-in-law had a history of manipulating people, isolating them, and controlling situations. I knew that understanding her past might be the key to saving my son and protecting our family, but I had no idea how deep it went. The next morning, I decided to do some discreet digging. I called a few relatives who had been in her life before she married my son. At first, they were hesitant, but eventually one older family friend agreed to meet me secretly. Over tea, she leaned in and whispered, "You need to know. She's always been like this. She grew up in a household where love was conditional. If she didn't get her way, she felt invisible, unloved, so she learned to control everything around her to survive." My heart ached as I listened. It wasn't just manipulation, it was fear and insecurity driving her actions. But while I felt sympathy, I also realized this didn't excuse hurting my son or trying to push me out of our family. I needed a plan, a way to approach this with care, but also firmness. Later that afternoon, I decided to speak to my son again. I wanted him to understand what I had learned without turning him against his bride. I said, "Son, I've discovered why she might be acting this way. She's scared of losing control, of feeling insignificant. But fear doesn't give anyone the right to hurt the people who love you." He nodded slowly, his face a mixture of relief and guilt. "Mom, I see that now. I never wanted you to feel rejected. I just didn't know how to stand up to her." We talked for hours. I encouraged him to find his voice and gently set boundaries with his bride. I reminded him that true love, both for a partner and for family, requires respect and honesty. And for the first time, he seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. But just as I thought we had made progress, I received an unexpected call from my daughter-in-law herself. Her tone was unusually calm, almost sweet. "Mom," she said, "I want to talk. Can we meet tomorrow?" I hesitated. Was this an olive branch or a trap? My instincts told me to be cautious, but I knew I couldn't back down. If I wanted to protect my son and maintain my place in his life, I had to face her directly, armed with understanding, but ready to stand firm. That night, I prepared myself mentally. I rehearsed my words, reminding myself that compassion and strength could coexist. I knew the conversation could either mend the fractures or widen the rift forever. And deep down, I also realized this might be the moment when the true character of my daughter-in-law would reveal itself. The next day, during our meeting, she revealed something so shocking about her plans for the wedding that it left me questioning everything I thought I knew about my family. "You won't believe what happens next. We'll expose her shocking plan, and it could change everything. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to follow this emotional journey." The next morning, I met her at a small cafe. She was waiting, calm and poised, but I could sense the calculation behind her polite smile. My heart pounded as I took a seat across from her, unsure whether this meeting would heal the wounds or make them deeper. "I wanted to talk," she began, her voice soft but firm. "I want you to understand why I've asked you to step back from the wedding." I listened carefully, keeping my own emotions in check. "I'm listening," I said, though every fiber of me wanted to defend myself. She took a deep breath. "This wedding, it's about starting fresh. My family and I have always believed that in order to have a happy life, we need to remove anything that could disrupt it. That's why I said what I did in my message. I didn't want to hurt you personally, but I couldn't risk any complications. Your presence, your influence, it scares me. I have a plan to make sure the wedding goes smoothly, without conflict, without stress." I froze. A plan? What could be worse than being told I wasn't wanted? She smiled faintly, almost triumphantly. "I've organized everything to minimize any potential disruptions. There's a strict seating arrangement, a guest list that avoids conflicts, and I've even requested that certain family members, like you, stay away from key moments. This is for everyone's peace." My blood boiled. Not only had she rejected me, she had meticulously orchestrated my absence. But instead of lashing out, I took a deep breath. I needed to protect my son without destroying him or turning this into a public war. I see. So everything is planned and everyone has to follow your rules. But let me ask you something. What if I showed up anyway? What if I quietly observed, not to cause trouble, but to support my son, the man you married? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then you would be breaking my rules. And rules are important if we want order, if we want happiness. I realized then that this wasn't just about a wedding. It was about control. She wanted to prove that she could dictate not just events, but relationships, feelings, even loyalty. And my son, caught in the middle, was at risk of losing his mother and his own voice. Leaving the cafe, I felt a mix of anger and determination. I knew I had to find a way to protect my son, to remind him of our bond, and to confront this plan without causing irreversible damage. I also knew that the coming days would test every ounce of patience, love, and strategy I possessed. That night, I called my son. "I know about the plan," I said softly, "but we're going to handle this together. You deserve to have your family by your side, not just follow someone else's orders." He paused, then whispered, "Mom, I don't know if I can fight her." I squeezed the phone, my heart aching but resolute. "You're stronger than you think, and I'll help you." The wedding day was approaching, and little did I know, she had prepared a final, unexpected twist, one that would shock everyone, including my son, and change the course of our family forever. The wedding day finally arrived. I woke up early, my heart heavy with anxiety, but also filled with determination. I had made my decision. I would attend, quietly, without confrontation, just to support my son. He deserved to see his mother there, even if his bride didn't want me present. As I arrived at the venue, everything looked perfect. Flowers lined the aisle, chairs were arranged meticulously, and the air buzzed with excitement. I kept to the back, blending in among the other guests. My son was pacing nervously, and I could see the tension on his face. I walked up to him, gave him a gentle hug, and whispered, "I'm here. Everything will be okay." He relaxed slightly, his eyes glistening with gratitude. "Thanks, Mom," he murmured. But then came the moment that changed everything. Just as the bride walked down the aisle, something unexpected happened. She stopped midway, her face frozen in shock. Everyone in the room turned to see what had caused her sudden hesitation. I saw it then, a subtle, almost imperceptible detail that she hadn't planned for. The music shifted, the officiant's voice faltered, and the guests exchanged confused glances. My son, too, looked puzzled. Then, slowly, he realized the reason for her pause. I had brought a small, meaningful gift for him. Not expensive or flashy, just a symbol of our bond. A handmade scrapbook of memories from his childhood, carefully crafted with photographs, letters, and little notes I had saved over the years. I placed it on a table where he could see it, quietly, before the ceremony began. The bride's face went pale. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't accounted for the enduring love and presence of a mother who refused to be erased. In that moment, it became clear to everyone. Love cannot be controlled or manipulated through rules or fear. My son picked up the scrapbook, his hands shaking slightly. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked at me, then at the memories of his childhood. The tension in the room shifted. Guests whispered softly, noticing the silent power of a mother's love that no one could override. The ceremony continued, but the energy had changed. My son held my hand briefly, a silent acknowledgement that we were still a team, still family, and that no one could take that away from us. After the wedding, the bride approached me, her expression unreadable. I smiled gently, not with malice, but with quiet strength. "I hope you understand," I said softly, "that family isn't something you can control.
It's something you nurture and respect." She said nothing, just walked away. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. The greatest gift isn't disappearing. It's showing up, loving fiercely, and refusing to be erased. But just when I thought the worst was over, an unexpected confession from my son left me stunned, one that would reveal secrets even deeper than his bride's control. My son's shocking confession, don't miss it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to see the emotional truth unfold.
After the wedding festivities ended, my son pulled me aside. His face was pale, and I could see the weight of something heavy pressing down on him. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice trembling. My heart sank. I had faced the bride's manipulation, the tension at the wedding, and now it was my own son who seemed burdened with the secret. I held his hands gently, urging him to speak. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. I'm here." He swallowed hard. "Mom, I didn't tell you everything about why I went along with her rules. I felt trapped, and I thought I was protecting you and myself at the same time. But the truth is, I almost didn't invite you at all. I was scared of her, scared of losing her, and I almost let her control our family completely." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I felt anger, fear, and heartbreak all at once. My son, the boy I had raised, nurtured, and loved unconditionally, had been caught in a web of fear, almost betraying the bond we shared. But beneath my shock, I felt a surge of compassion. He was still my son, still human, and clearly struggling to stand up for himself. I held his hands gently, urging him to speak. "You're human, my love. You were scared, but it's never too late to choose love and family over fear." He buried his face in my shoulder, tears falling freely. I didn't want to ruin the wedding. I didn't want her to hate me, and I didn't want to hurt you either. But now, I realize that standing by you, being honest, is the only way to truly honor everyone I love. In that moment, I felt the tension of months, maybe years, begin to lift. My son had chosen courage, and together we could begin to heal the fractures that had threatened our family. I reminded him that love isn't about fear or control. It's about honesty, respect, and mutual care. We spoke long into the night, discussing how to set boundaries, how to ensure his relationship with his bride was fair and respectful, and how I could remain a supportive presence without causing conflict. By the end of our conversation, a sense of clarity and calm had settled over us. I realized then that the greatest battles aren't always fought in public. They're fought in hearts, in quiet moments of courage and truth. And my son had just taken the first brave step toward reclaiming his voice. But even as we embraced, I knew that the final chapter of the story hadn't yet been written. My daughter-in-law had witnessed the wedding day events, and I could sense that she wasn't finished trying to assert control. One more confrontation, one final test of strength, still loomed on the horizon. The day after the wedding, I knew it was time for the final conversation, the moment that would either heal the fractures in our family or leave them irreparably damaged. My son had confessed, I had stood by him, and now the truth needed to be faced, openly and honestly. I invited my daughter-in-law to a quiet meeting at our home. She arrived, polite but guarded, and I could see the tension in her eyes. I took a deep breath and spoke first, keeping my tone calm but firm. "We need to talk about what happened at the wedding and what it means for our family." She hesitated, then sat down. "I still don't understand why you attended. I thought I had made it clear." I smiled gently, not with mockery but with strength. "You see, love and family aren't about control. They're about respect, understanding, and support. I attended because I love my son, because I raised him, and because no one has the right to erase family. We all have feelings, and ignoring them doesn't create peace. It creates resentment. Her eyes flickered, as if she was realizing, maybe for the first time, that control alone cannot build trust or loyalty. I just wanted everything to be perfect, she whispered, her voice shaking. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want him to be torn. I nodded, and now you see that trying to control others doesn't solve anything. The wedding was beautiful, not because of strict rules, but because of love. And love includes all the people who care about you and him, even if you didn't understand that before. She looked down, a mixture of shame and relief on her face. Slowly, she said, I want to try to do better. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. I see now that I was wrong. My son, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward and took her hand. He said, "We all make mistakes, but it's about learning and growing together. Mom, you are an important part of my life, and we need her to understand that too." I smiled, my heart swelling with pride and relief. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about healing, understanding, and creating a family that could thrive together. That day, boundaries were set, respect was established, and the foundation for a healthier, more loving relationship was built. Looking back, I realized the journey had been painful, exhausting, and emotional, but it had also been transformative. The greatest gift I could give my family wasn't disappearing, staying silent, or letting fear rule. It was showing up, loving fiercely, and refusing to be erased. From that moment on, our family began to heal. We laughed, we cried, and we learned that love cannot be dictated by fear or control. It can only be nurtured through respect, patience, and understanding. Life will always have challenges, misunderstandings, and difficult people, but the ones who love you will always find a way back if you stand firm in your truth and your love. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us of the power of love, family, and courage.